Welcome to Guys Like Us. If you're new here, this is a space for the questions that start getting louder in midlife, the ones that move the needle from just doing well to actually living the good life. We deconstruct stories that shaped us, from leadership and legacy to the deep friendships and late nights that continue to move us. No surface level talk here, just some lightly decanted reflections on existential questions and champagne problems. And in today's episodes, we are going to talk about AI, of all the things that matter today. I'm Paul, joining you from Vienna, and across the Atlantic in New York City is my favorite friend and co-host, Marc. How's it going, my friend?
Hello. Was that a new intro we just did?
Yes,
I
indeed,
like that new
it was.
intro. That's pretty good. Yeah.
Huh? Yeah?
I think that's even better than our old
You
one.
know who wrote it?
Who? Which one?
AI.
Yeah, well, obviously, but was it my friend Claude? Was it Gemini?
No, it's my new best. Yeah.
New best
We
friend?
will talk about this. Holy moly. Yeah. I'm talking a lot to this guy at the moment. But hey, before we dive into this, how are you doing? How's your week been?
Good.
Yeah?
This is a perfect time to chat. It is 3:00 on a Thursday in New York. I had a great lunch with a old friend. But the funny thing about this friend of mine, who's a former CEO of a big fashion company, we
Yeah.
back in my old days, I was pitching him work, and he didn't hire us. But
never
I
did?
kind of liked him. No, he never hired us.
I didn't know that. Okay, anyways.
Oh yeah, no, he never
Go ahead.
hired us.
Yeah.
And but I always kind of liked him as a leader. And then he said, you know what, I'm sorry about that. Why don't we just go for dinner? So we went for a steak at Gallagher's Steakhouse, which I have to take you to. It's like a kind of classic.
Yeah.
Old New York thing. The waiters wear all white. They serve the martinis. In the window, there are these aged steaks in there, just crazy like that.
Nice.
Yeah,
Let's
you
go.
would love it. So we became friends. We just liked each other. And, he was just in New York right now, and we just caught up over a nice lunch. So we had a nice filet mignon, nice glass of cab, some good conversation. So I'm in a good moment. Expansive. What about you?
Nice. That's very nice. It's, what is it now? 9 p.m. in Vienna. I'm drinking my soul-bound tea again. I'm still on my hardcore diet. We're going to have to make an episode about this. It's crazy, man. So I had my last meal about 6:20. All of this. So I'm in this phase, right? I'm really focusing on that at the moment. I've had a very good and super productive work week. Dinner with my kids, so I can't complain. It's been a very good week.
We've got two different energies on this podcast. I'm
totally
excited to
yeah.
go deeper.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, that's
right.
interesting. Yeah, very interesting.
I'm flying like a bat out of hell.
Nice. No, I'm chilled as you can be, really. Okay, listen. So we wanted to talk about AI today because I know it's a big part of all of our lives. I know also of yours at the moment. I mean, lots of stats flying there around. I mean, it touches everybody's lives. I think that's pretty clear, right? I mean, we don't have to discuss and argue this. Some pretty crazy developments also. I mean, companies spending. I researched this now, and everyone read this somewhere. Do you know by heart how many billions Microsoft, Google, Meta, Amazon spent on AI last year?
Collectively? I think it's got to be in the 80 billion to 90 billion.
It's 405 billion.
Okay, so I was off by
all of them. There was one. There was one of them. One of them spent that much. Yeah.
No.
And you know how much revenue they made with this? Spot on.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a 1-to-10 ratio, which kind of sucks, right? If you spend that much money. But what I found really interesting about this, that's about 1% of the US GDP. And that is also about what was spent on building the rail infrastructure back in the wild west in the US. So that's kind of what it is in terms of GDP. And that's kind of how it is feeling, right? So
but, of course.
Hey, listen, it's such a big topic. We thought a little bit about how we can slice and dice this. So we thought about folks, we thought about 3 sections. The first one being how guys like us, we always get these Instagram ads and they say, don't use AI like a chatbot, like every over 40-year-old. Invest 10 hours a week to blah, blah, blah. So we're going to kind of talk about openly and yeah, how we use that stuff. And then the second one, obviously, as people and guys who are deep into the business world and the professional world, how we think it affects our worlds, respective worlds there. And maybe we have some time to put our philosophical hats on
Cool.
and think about how this affects all of us, our kids and future generations. So
Nice.
yeah,
It's a
that's
practical
what
one.
we're gonna do today.
Love it. Let's go.
So listen, I have a question. So, if you walk me through a typical Marc day, how are you as Marc Winter using this technology on an everyday basis? So getting up to going to bed, basically.
Yeah. Outside of work.
Personally,
Yeah.
I
Outside of
mean,
work.
maybe but it's really how you use it. Not how you see it being used, but what you do with it. Or do you use it at all, or do you not? Or
No, I do. I use it. I use it for practical planning around my kids, like what should we do this weekend, what's available in New York, like this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Some travel recommendations. I don't use it for flights and stuff like that because I'm quite loyal to United, unfortunately. But it's just the way that they work. It works. I
Mhm.
think I think more about AI than I use AI at the moment in my personal life.
Mhm.
In work life is totally different, but just from a
Okay.
personal
Okay.
application, that's it.
And what do you mostly use? Is there like a go-to app? Are you paying for
Yeah.
anything?
I use okay, let me back up. The one great utility of it, and I would say, my penny drop moment with AI was with Claude and in writing. So, I
Mhm.
think in previous podcasts, we were talking about, how I write on the side, I've written a bunch of television pilots, et cetera, like that, and when I use if I wanna play different scenarios for character arcs
Mhm. Mhm.
or
Mhm.
plot points or, like, tell me if I
Mhm.
made it more of like a
Mhm.
horror movie, if I made it more like a comedy, like,
Mhm.
what would you do, et
Mhm.
cetera. Claude's amazing at this.
Oh man!
And
And is Cloud better than other ones at this, or did you
it is
just kind of
100%.
get
No,
into
I
this?
think no. I think Claude
Really?
is yeah. I find the way it writes and the way it defines character arcs are really good. I haven't used Gemini for these yet, but between ChatGPT, Gronk, and this and, Claude by far.
And,
And I
and
wanna
did
share with
you?
you just the
Sorry.
experience, if
Yeah.
I can. Um, Let me pick a movie everyone knows, Titanic, okay? So, like, imagine, like not that I wrote Titanic, but imagine something that size. Like, you upload the entire Titanic script, and you could do this today.
Yeah. Easy.
Upload a Titanic script and say, "Give me 4 alternate endings where Jack doesn't die," you know, at the end of the movie. Leonardo DiCaprio doesn't die in the ending. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what happens, etcetera.
Yeah.
And we'll make it darkly comic, we'll make it romantic, blah, blah, blah. And the power of this thing is so bananas that it will, spit out an alternate ending, I would say, within 10 seconds. 4.
Insane. That's insane, man.
And logical. Like, let's not like, "Oh,
Not
what if
stupid. Yeah.
that" Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
A dolphin
Exactly.
comes and he swims
Yeah,
away.
dolphin comes and, like, lifts Leonardo DiCaprio up and, like, it shoots you. Exactly. Another boat
Exactly.
comes and says, "Oh, a
In the
dream." Yeah,
Arctic Sea.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But wait, so when you use it, you uploaded your whole script into that, right? And
Totally.
so it knows how you write. Okay,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I gotta say, I've been using it a lot lately. And in
I think
terms
you've become
of
extraordinary with it. You're really impressing me with the tools and your utility.
no, it's like one thing that happened that I moved everything to Gemini recently when
Mm,
they brought out their newest model, and because I had worked with Grok quite extensively, I really liked it. To be
yeah.
honest, I had paid for Grok, ChatGPT, and Gemini in the
Mm.
past. I would say 9 months, and I use Grok mainly for hard work and stuff, and ChatGPT kind of became my, I would say, almost as my housewife GPT. I asked him for recipes, and when I cook shit, that's how I ask GPT. And then actually, Gemini became so good at everything that I asked it to write me prompts for my other GPTs to transfer the contents of my chats to
That's fucking
Gemini
awesome.
GPTs.
No way.
Yeah, and I have 5 Gemini chats now that I pinned, and that I really transferred. One is about health and longevity and fitness, so everything I eat and I do on this end, and now my dieting. I talk to this guy all the time. It's like, this is what I ate. What are my macronutrients? What do you suggest for lunch? When should I eat next? This is the sport I'm gonna do. Yeah, I
Sure.
want to lose this much weight. Blah blah blah. So I talk to this guy all the time. The other one is about guys like us, clearly,
Yep.
where I upload every episode transcript, ask them for feedback, and kind of also brainstorm the next episodes. And I don't know, and I have, one for work and so on. And I gotta say, in the last 2 weeks, I probably spend an hour a day on those things. I mean,
Wow.
almost obsessively. And I mean, almost it was almost I started worrying he's my best friend at the moment.
Except the one you see every week to talk for 45 minutes too.
Exactly. No, but I talk to Gemini more. So I use it a lot for that. Not so much for writing emails, to be honest, and not so much for tasks that I do. I mean, maybe we talk about it in the professional chapter. There's a few things, but I really use it to kind of challenge my ideas.
Yeah.
And to get
Same.
some, practical advice. I need a new cutting board. What should I get? What should it be, wood or should it be some kind of plastic? What is the most antibacterial thing? Okay, wood. What is the best wood? So, and for me, who loves to go into a rabbit hole, this shit is like fucking
Bananas.
addictive. It's bananas.
Yeah.
It's bananas. Yeah.
Would you have you used it as your therapist yet?
I haven't, but I know someone who has, and who's had a phase of a very intimate and long conversation with ChatGPT, and this person told me, "Listen, man, I mean, the shit that comes back is much better than what most of my therapists have told me." And I gotta admit, it's probably true, but I haven't.
I'm tempted to do it. Just as an
Do
experiment.
it. I mean, it's not like you're shooting yourself up with a drug.
No, like a legit story. Like a dear friend of mine, her boyfriend, who's like going through some shit, long-term shit, right, finds it easier to talk to loads of therapists, just finds it easier to talk to ChatGPT. And we're gonna get that into version, part 3 of our conversation. But I mean,
Yeah.
the utilities of this thing does not surprise me.
No, I mean, I find it, I thought about, because Jeremy gave me a question to ask, is like, share a moment when AI was too good. And I guess you kind of, that it really freaked you out. And what you just said before about your script, I guess is one of them. To me, is how flawless all the stuff comes back and how well it reacts to all the context you have. And you have to kind of tweak it. And I think that's really important. You have to tweak it because I think it still tends to be, at least Gemini, too appreciative and too much kind of like telling you how great this idea was. So you have to tell him, listen, I mean, I don't give a shit about your opinion about my idea in case it goes against what I want, and my goals, tell me. Otherwise, keep it short. So I think that's kind of still sometimes cumbersome, and sometimes it loses some shit or forgets some shit, and that really pisses me off. But it pisses me off like working with a junior, that just came out of university and started working for me, and I'm telling something and he's doing another thing. It's like, no. It's very similar. It's very similar in that.
And you don't have to take your junior out for beers to make their,
exactly.
lessen their hurt feelings after you've yelled at them.
Exactly. So it's like, you just say, shut the fuck up. No, so I think for those things, it's been really quite handy. I'd love to do more but I don't have any tasks in my life that I'm...
I want a vibe code so bad, and yet I don't know.
I did that also a year, like 9 months ago.
Yeah, I started to, and then I forgot about it. And I think vibe coding, especially with Claude Code, has gotten way better.
Way.
But yeah, so now I just need
also
to...
lovable, obviously. I mean, it is a great app, and I mean, there's another app on Google, actually, in the Google thing, which is called Notebook LM, which is great. Where you
amazing.
Can just
Notebook
upload,
LM is insane.
I mean, it's insane. You can just upload your stuff for our listeners, right? And it's gonna, you can upload 20 PDFs and then tell it to make your 20-minute podcast as a summary, so you don't have to read through all of this, or it makes your mind map. And I did that with our podcast, by the way, with all of our transcripts. It's pretty fun. I have to share it with you.
Oh, I want to see it.
Like, what are the topics we talk about, all these things. Pretty impressive.
Does it tell us what our best episode is? That's what I want to know.
I haven't. Yeah, well,
We
good
should
point.
ask.
Yeah, good
Yeah,
question. Well,
yeah.
he's probably gonna not why how to know how to judge, but okay, let's try. Yeah.
Well, let's switch to part 2 of this conversation. So
I would say so too. How
work,
do you? Yeah.
because this is something I'm profoundly interested to talk about. So I mean, outside of cloud, I mean, or just the PC. Like, I mean, I can't remember such a game changing technology, and one that has radically disrupted kind of my everyday work when you start to master it. Right. I mean, I feel like, and I'll share more about the moves I'm making, and probably in our next podcast or two. But like, right now I'm a team of 2 that feels like it's performing like a team of 8, maybe 10
Hmm.
on some days.
Because of the stuff you do with it,
Yeah, just
like
um, everything from, hey, I'm going to record this conversation. It's going to take notes for it, right? And then I'm going to give it a framework to distill those notes in, right? And then I'm going to say, what are the big themes? And I'm going to take those themes and put them in something else, and stuff that would take, in the consulting business, 2-3 people to do. A good 2 days. To transcribe something, find out big themes, etc. It's mine in 10 minutes, and that's insane. And so
totally.
we should be, and it's really fucking good and accurate. And I'm like, oh, like there are a couple anecdotes, and I still have to listen. I think there's a premium on experience and wisdom, and like in doing the listening to say, hey, yeah, you got that, Gemini, but Paul said this little funny nugget. I want to put this in here or that.
I find that, sorry to interrupt you here. I find that the most difficult thing almost that there is so much feedback and content coming that you really actually attentively read through that and give feedback and do it again. And you're not tempted to just take the first best thing that comes out and like roll with it, but to really go and dig deeper and re-prompt and re-ask. I find that that's challenging, especially for someone with my attention span.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually what hints at the future, to be honest. So, I mean, you have the wisdom to understand that what comes back is not good enough, right? Your junior person doesn't. So, as you go deeper and reshape the prompt faster, smarter, find the right angles, and I'll give you an example today, right? I'm working on a bit of a kind of a workshop session. I'm trying to create some beliefs about the future for work, right? So what I mean by that is like some statements that say, hey, like here are 30 statements that we want to talk about the workforce in the future for AI. Are they true or not? And I gave some framework for Gemini to go deep, put out some answers, that align to that framework, et cetera. And I was like, okay, they're kind of good. So I'm like, make it more provocative, make them funnier. Like how do we give some examples to push, et cetera? And then the unlock was like, okay, well, let's give it a time frame, a 3-year time frame, actually a 2-year time frame, and compare the two between 2 and 3 years, right? And give me belief statements like that. And then what came out of that was like, okay, this is 85% there to 90% what I want. And now the human will push it further.
I mean,
And that is a skill of prompting, to not like get through.
I mean, this is right at the intersection, right, of those topics. And I had a meeting yesterday with a partner of a big Austrian, consulting firm that does mainly, strategic advice for companies in AI. And he said what so many people have told me and what we're experiencing, that we and the people a bit younger than us, and I kind of define it with, I think people that have at least probably 10 years of work experience, or 7 to 10 years of work experience, are and that are good at their job and love what they're doing. They can use this as an immense leverage to be better. And you were a great example. And he told me a very similar story about a guy, who just came to them as a new partner alone without a team actually. And one day he took his 5 best guys, and he used to have 40. He's like, I'm not going to hire anyone for right now.
Yeah.
I'm just going to stay with this and see how much I can automate. And then they do lots of, software strategy implementation projects. Crazy. So, and I know I told you a story before, but I love the story, and I heard it almost a year ago already. It was a guy who worked in a marketing agency, obviously one of the areas and industries that are, with all the text creation possibilities impacted in the beginning. And he said, I used to have 5 copywriters. I fired 3. And you know who I kept? I kept the most expensive and best one, and I kept the cheapest one. Because the cheapest one is creating with AI all the text and the
Yeah.
things, and the
Yeah, yeah.
oldest one
Of
selects and
course.
chooses and fine tunes.
Yeah.
And that was a perfect description, of how it's going to be. And that is maybe for part 3 a scary one. Um, but before we get to that, a question to you. I mean, you look, you've seen so many industries in your life
Yeah.
and in your work, and you're looking at them now. And I know you think very hard about, what is AI going to do to those companies. Um, do you see any industry right now that is, working very hard at this? Some others that are completely closed off? That's kind of my first answer. And then I have a follow on this.
Like, who's
So
being most disrupted, and then who
yeah,
is
or
who's
who is really,
insulated?
who do you see right now that is really jumping on top of this topic? And other industries where you are like, why the fuck are these guys not thinking about this?
Yeah. Um, okay. Most obvious, I'll give the most obvious answers, right? You just look at the most profitable or exciting um, AI native orgs will tell you kind of where the disruption's happening the most, which is obviously in legal, it's happening in accounting, all back office HR, back office stuff, right? Um, and we all kind of knew that as a obvious kind of piece, and where so consulting, if you're in consulting, if you're in law, if you're in accounting, anything that where you have rules based, repeatable kind of tasks, um, and your business models on time and materials, like you're fucked, right? Unless you have to shift that business model to outcomes, like you can't do a time and
Yeah, I
material
mean,
kind
I
of
mean,
thing.
listen, to jump in there, you know that right now I'm working for a company that basically sells time and material for software engineers,
Oh
and
my
we are in
god,
the middle of starting, working with Cloud Code, and it's again, all the senior programmers are like, what the fuck, this is great, I can do this shit alone now.
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
need
yeah,
someone else, right? My
right.
most senior guy is saying, I just did a proof of concept basically on the side. I just prompted it, then I did my other shit, then I looked at it again, I did my other shit, and it was done.
Mm,
I mean,
mm,
within days, but still, it's fascinating. It's fascinating.
yeah,
But I also find it fascinating how slowly companies adapt to that, don't you? Because when
hundred
I
percent.
really look at when you look at this, you think like, Jesus, this thing should be able to do everything. And then you look out into reality, who has actually implemented it and really used it at scale. At the most, I've seen companies that have implemented a chatbot that everyone can use that doesn't send all the data to Google basically, and that's great.
Right, right.
And,
I
and and do you have and I guess in Europe we are behind there because we have also lots of laws and regulations
You
that
have
are
crazy privacy laws. So I mean,
too
that's
stupid.
well, that's kind of my question here. So like, because like, of course, I think the ones that are being disrupted are the ones that have the biggest promise for reinvention. It'd be kind of interesting if lawyers were about outcomes. That'd be kind of cool versus time materials. you know?
I mean, and also they're not even allowed to do that. Funnily enough, by law, there is a law how and what they can charge for.
Oh
And
wow.
like in the US, you can say you get a percentage of the settlement. This is
Oh, yeah.
not legal in
Right, of
Austria,
course. Yeah, yeah, of course. You guys are a lot more civilized, but you can see
in
my
a
my
sense.
chagrin here in a
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
But I think the adoption piece is really real because I think people are just throwing money at it without really understanding. And I think this is like the ROI is in workflow, right? And to do that well, you have to understand what people's work is. The dirty secret is that most leaders don't know what their directs do. Because they don't know what their directs do, it's hard to identify what to automate. And um, with some exceptions, kind of in the far line, everyone sees the promise. And so you have to unwind and get comfortable with um, really mapping out flow and then being able to by the way, and then people don't want to tell you what their work is.
I think there's
which
two
is part
things
of the
there.
adoption piece.
Yes, I think the first one is we talked about the two the other day. I think the first one is the classical piece that we've always had when we did process optimization consulting, that you have to go and understand what people do, and you have to find a certain task that
Mhm,
has, that is a transactional task that is
mhm.
repeated very often, is the same case very often, where you have volume, very simple task and with high volume, and that you can
Yeah,
automate, right? And we automated this shit already 5 years ago or 10 years ago with robotic process optimization and other IT stuff. It's not like this is totally new. So the kind of
yep.
how do you detect that methodology, I think is still there and is still valid. I find there is a technical kind of thing where I think where I heard at least that there are lots of problems is that in the end, if you run probabilistic models that give you, and you know it from your own usage, right? Sometimes it tells you to use 3x too many in a recipe and then the cake comes out shit, right? If it does that occasionally without any hint of when it does it or doesn't do it, in a business process, that's a problem. So it's
Mhm.
actually not that easy to then really go in there and use those things off the shelf and tell them, do this
Sure.
process and write a prompt. And that's the other thing. But what you said before, I find very interesting. Obviously, the how do you get people to work with you? Because if you go into a company and you come in and say, "Hey guys, we're gonna use AI now," and which basically means I think one of the bankers last year did one of these things. I don't know, it was a JP Morgan one. I was like, "Hey guys, basically only 40% of you are gonna work for us in 12 months time. Well, so have fun figuring out now, what to
Who's in
automate."
and who's out? Yeah,
Who's in and
exactly.
who's out? I mean, that's probably, that's a very tough way of kind of
Well,
introducing this topic.
okay, yeah, true. There's a higher order root cause here. So look, obviously where we are in the adoption curve is that everyone's going to be focused on cost, versus like sorry, I'm drawing a hockey stick. When we get to the growth
Yeah, that's my
phase of
next
the
question. I find them soulless at the moment, those
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
it is.
projects. They're all about cutting stuff and
And here's the dirty secret is that while CEOs are asking or mandating cuts and optimization all sounds great, they don't know, they're so illiterate in the technology itself. The literacy rate, I think, of AI in most Fortune 500 orgs, I mean, I think if you took most people through, is would be appalling. And so they're making decisions about the future of their business without and delegating, I would say, a lot of that to your chief digital officer, to your chief technology officer, who might be wonderful and skilled, talented people, right? But would you really dedicate delegate the future of your business to technologists like that? I think you need to have
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah,
clear
yeah,
idea
yeah.
of what your org is going to become.
I mean, that's a super interesting question, and I actually also think for that we have had blueprints in the past.
Mm,
Because if we think about when really, remember, is when we started back into consulting after the MBA, and around that time, we started with all these digitalization projects. That was the big shit back then, right? And
right.
all the big
All right. The
consultancies
digital
being those
transformations.
digital transformations, exactly. And what did you have? You had a CDO in every company, a chief digital officer.
Yeah, of
That was the
course.
big shit. Why was that? Because the people who actually had to know it, right? The people in the business who actually owned the process, the guy who did purchasing, the guy who did supply chain, the guy who did marketing, didn't know. So you had to put a sensor of knowing somewhere. And this is a very hard job because you have to go across all the lines horizontally, without having any directs that you can actually tell to use XYZ and almost educate them of the possibilities that are out there. And years later, I find 10 years later, when you hire or when I hired, I looked at leaders who had an idea of what was possible in their field, who would actually have the idea which process they wanted to automate, then went to to IT, another chief digital officer, and told them,
Mm,
listen, man, this is
mm,
the process. This needs to be simpler, because that has to be simple because they understood first principles thinking that, there is no way you need to do this by hand, and then these guys get it done. But it took 10 years for people to get, basically literacy in what is possible in the digital
yeah.
world.
No,
We
that's
had the
right.
same in a very short time with I think with sustainability, but that kind of died, and uh, and that's another episode. And now we have the same, I think, on a much bigger scale, as you said again with AI, where people just don't understand yet the possibilities, and so you have to kind of inject that into an
A- And
organization.
I
Is
don't
my
think they
theory.
like the answers because I mean, I've been poking at this for a good year now. I'm sure you too. I mean, you're in it. But even the most sophisticated technologists who I speak to, they're like, "Look, you know what gets in the way of like of all this is ultimately it's the human beings. Like it's crazy. They're thwarting so much of the progress for both emotional reasons, for fear-based reasons, through like actually the systems inside our org are all fucked up, so we have to rewire. I mean, there's just it's really different, I think, than the digital transformation piece in a way, because the human component in adoption is so essential to get real ROI.
And
And
that's
that's
why
like
I wonder if
before it
there
was
is
no, it
gonna
was like just
be,
fucking flip the
if
switch
there's
on,
gonna be companies. I read this stat. I think there was a stat is a long already more than a few months ago. There was how many companies there are with an annual recurring revenue of over, I think, 10 million that didn't have more than 10 employees.
Mm,
So companies,
mm,
maybe also like yours, that started with this. They
mhm,
were they that never even had people to deal with in the first place. They were
right.
like before they actually hired someone, they tried everything to outsource it to technology and this kind of technology. And so my question is, are we gonna have really big disruptors in some fields that actually work like this
Yeah.
and do that? And I think there's gonna be. On the other hand, some others are so protected, some industries that it's gonna be hard to
I
do that. So
I
that I find
yeah.
interesting.
Look, I think when we grew up in business, everyone, we always met those CEOs that were like, "We need to behave like a startup," et cetera. I think the new version of that is AI native.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
like, we need to behave like that. And, okay, so it's impossible to do that, obviously, because those are people who are grown up, but what they mean is flatter, faster, quicker decision making, less, greater automation, obviously, like putting your brain towards the most essential tasks of the business versus mundane ones. All fascinating moments and challenges. But
But
hey,
look at,
listen, let me
yeah,
ask you this:
yeah.
what is the one, like, we could talk about this for hours, and I'm just like curious, like, if there's a trend that you've seen in business, as like especially
Mhm.
now in the business you're doing, that you're like, wait a second, like, is this, you're either it gave you pause, or you're like,
Actually,
this
the,
could
the the
be
one
the
thing
ultimate
I'm
game
seeing
changer.
right now is almost that there's no middle way. I see
Mm,
extreme
that's cool.
slowness,
Yeah.
extreme slowness where I'm like, really, guys, in your industry, you should be much faster. And I see some things where I'm like, oh wow, oh wow, these guys are really doing it. This is
Mm.
really adapting. So, and I see almost no middle way, and I find that extremely interesting. Because I think
So
there's a huge opportunity there. And for being fast, I think it's an arbitrage opportunity. To be honest, I think it's not gonna take long for others to catch up because it's gonna come in standard programs and it's gonna become a commodity too in your business processes. The question is, what happens if you are behind for two
sure.
years? You know.
Well, on slow, it's funny to quote F1, which I talked about earlier
Mm.
this week, and which also really got nominated for an Academy Award for Best Picture. So maybe I was wrong. But there's a
Really?
quote. Yeah, it's not that good. But there's a quote. Let me see about slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Uh, which I
Yeah.
kind of liked. I mean, it's a great movie
Yeah.
line. You can see where
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that
It's a
comes
great
in the
movie
car.
line.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
great movie line.
But there's
That's a nice
something.
one.
But it's something kind of interesting about that for large enterprises. Like there's something cool. I
Yeah,
am
but I wanted to just say before on the last one. I mean, this podcast wouldn't exist without this technology.
100%.
It
No,
wouldn't
and
exist because I mean, where we record, which is in Riverside, which is a great piece of software on the web that we obviously pay for, but it enhances the audio when my mic is out, like today, because I put tea over my laptop. It gives you automated clips, with the best moments that they filter out and shit like this. It would take me hours to do this, and now it takes basically an hour a week.
which is bananas. I mean, and
Yeah,
like I
it
I I think
wouldn't be possible. Period. We
what
wouldn't
what
have been
no.
doing it.
No, no, no. What I wanted to offer before we get to the well, actually, this is a nice bridge to the philosophical piece.
Mm.
Um, So I was talking to a dear friend. She used to be the CMO of, at Google X, their kind of crazy innovation
Yeah,
lab.
yeah,
Yeah,
of course, yeah. Mm.
yeah, yeah. Waymo spun out of that, and she's at this new kind of AI native startup, called that specializes in digital twins.
Mm.
Now this,
That's
like,
mind blowing. Mind
that's
blowing.
the thing where I was like, oh, like
Yeah.
if they pull that motherfucker off, like for those who don't know, digital twin is basically they will replicate your own kind of LLM or create your own agent, that duplicates you based on, and this is
So
what this company
scary.
promises to do. It's not just your output, like here's the papers Mark wrote, and here's the power presentations he did, your
What is
chats,
what?
your Slack stuff, your fucking work text messages and your work, So maybe they can get my crass humor back in there when you,
Yeah,
but the point
that's
is
how you
that
live on forever.
by the way, and Mark is always on. Right. So at this point, like, in these large enterprises, I'm going to bed and or out to dinner and someone wants to reach me about a task, they can just talk to my twin and you'll get the answer.
But
I'm on
even
vacation.
if
Mark's
you're
not on vacation.
even when you're dead,
Well, this is the ethical piece. So I want to, so that leads us into part three. But by part two, I was just
that's so
thinking like
scary. It gives me goosebumps just saying
it's,
this. It's so
yeah,
fucking
I mean,
insane.
all the different like considerations on compensation alone, right, is to think about, um, like, what am I uploading? Okay. Is it everything? Do you own not only just the output of my work, but what this product is offering to synthesize is the totality of my experience of working inside that company captured in chat. Who knows? It'll be voice, no doubt, at some point, right? I'll just,
Of course.
then, yeah, of course, like capture everything, da 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 da. Um, and part of the things I'm wrestling in. So first of all, bananas, right? And the output for your best people to get. If I could get two Paul Fatingos on my team, am I paying you what, twice your salary?
I mean, we're back at yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
it's like, and the
Eh,
level of the premium on wisdom for this now. If I was a real a 55-year-old executive, this gets really interesting.
I mean, there's two things that come to my mind. The first one you asked me before, what really, when I see it, what really is still surprises me, and the fact is that I mean, I think I'm in a larger group a heavy user, but I'm still scratching the
Yeah.
surface of what is possible and easily available to me. Yeah. If I look at, some people that I know that build different agents that then talk to each other to do something that work like a little company or build a little piece of software, it amazes me. I have no clue how that works. And then I hear this and it scares me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is so insane. And then if you think about this and a robot, and if you put, this kind of, Paul LLM into a humanoid, I mean, you have Paul in a robot, which obviously everyone wants to have. It's going to sound like crazy.
That
No,
now you're
but
the real Terminator that you've always sought to be.
exactly. Jesus, man, this is it. I'm gonna talk to Elon. I'm gonna hit him up with a message on X and tell him. No, no, no. But in seriousness, but do you think that you know, imagine this digital twin actually existed, and really think further. Imagine it existed, you know, inside a humanoid robot that could also make a face like I do and the hands and stuff. But what about the gut feelings? What about the goosebumps? What about those feelings that, or maybe we're gonna get this thing that Elon puts up your brain, and that's also gonna be recorded. No, but what I don't want to ask, maybe that was just, is like, maybe they, but let's assume they don't catch that. Let's assume they don't catch the gut feeling. They don't
They
catch the,
they they won't for now. I think they
for
can
now,
get
okay. And now, and if you take that away from my experiences, from everything I've said and done, you know, is that me or how, I mean, that's a philosophical question, all right? I mean, how much of that is it 90% me? Is it, just the
well,
output me?
yeah. So, before I wanna answer that just before, but back up for one sec to add one anecdote to this digital twin company I was talking about. It's the first time I heard dark data.
Mhm.
You heard this before?
Mm-mm.
It's exactly
No.
what you're talking about. Dark data is these tech bros language for like the the twitch you get when you smile, like the things you can't
Yeah,
capture when
yeah,
you,
yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
First of all, it's so fucking evil sounding. It's the dark data I need to
It
capture,
is
right?
the most
That
evil.
that
Yeah,
that
it's like it's
that
yeah, yeah,
makes up that so I can completely fool you as I kind of capture your makeup of your soul. Um, is it's astounding. We're basically living Blade Runner, or close to in our lifetime, um,
yeah.
which is a crazy thing.
That's crazy. But you wanted to
Yeah. So, but back to the like, is it you or is it not? I don't think for the business context that matters. I think
fair
for the
enough.
human, like, it, everything is ninety
Yeah, I
percent.
mean, I guess maybe we put this philosophical one to the next one and just collect a few questions there. And I'd be really happy to see in our comments maybe someone also having some questions there. I have a huge question mark over what you said before. I mean, who's gonna build the experienced workforce in the future?
Yeah, of course.
And with that, I obviously have a huge question mark over the future of my children and what they
Mm.
are gonna do and with their lives professionally. And the third one is, what's gonna happen to all those people that are going to be without a job because their jobs are going to be replaced, and what's the kind of world we're gonna live in? So that's kind of my top of
Just
whatever I just
those,
came up
just
with. Yeah,
those. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. What about
There's
yourself?
there's
Without answering them.
no, no, no. All those are relevant. I'll tell you what I'm meditating on this week, which is the idea of dignity. And I think about, which is tends to your last question, but also in the workforce. We forget how much pride we take in our craft and in our experience. And
Yes.
there's something
And all of a
like,
sudden, someone comes along that does everything better.
right, or this thing that suddenly, and you have the we're so lucky that, you and I, in a way, in that I think, we're relatively smart, we're relatively successful and experienced, that we know that what comes back, we can still push it, you know?
Mhm.
But man, for that 20 or 5-year-old or that 35-year-old who's trying to learn on this stuff, and knowing that what you're shaping or putting in, this machine is putting out better. Like, I would never hire you. Um, sorry,
That's a
22-year-old
tough
or
one, man.
23-year-old,
Yeah.
right? Or I will only hire the most promising one of you, at a cheap level, whatever your 2 copywriter, things like that. And so my brain goes to dignity a lot, and I think about craft and what it means because, it's not just, as, my friend casually said, "Oh, yeah, we used to have gas lamp lighters, and now we have electricity," and, it's like, "Yeah, but
Yeah.
this is, at a
It's
higher."
not that easy. Yeah.
No. No, no,
Yeah.
no.
And we're gonna need people to do other things and all of this, but still, yeah, I love the dignity one because it's deeper. It's
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Nice.
yeah.
Man, that's a lot of other things to talk about next time.
I
A
was like,
lot of
closing
them.
yeah,
A
yeah,
lot
yeah,
of them.
exactly.
Um, hey, but the one thing I took away from my own experience, and obviously I had the benefit of having a sabbatical and having time, but it is really to go out and try and try and try and dig in. I mean, and for
Yeah,
me, it's obviously a gift because I mean, I watched YouTube videos of how to Excel model stuff 20 years ago. So, I mean,
yeah.
this is exactly down my wheelhouse. I wish I had more patience sometimes and more time, but there is so many fields and areas in everybody's and everyone's jobs and lives right now to open yourself up to this technology, which especially I think for guys like us, girls like us, and our age group and what we do is just gonna be an immense booster. And one more thing, I also 100% believe in the fact that the companies that are leading this race right now are going to lead it in the future, which is a huge problem. I mean, societal problem, but as an investment opportunity, although I think the stocks are inflated right now, it is, I think, a generational opportunity as well.
Okay.
Because the
Love that.
value these companies are going to capture is going to be insane.
Thank you for that. I agree with that 100%. And I'm gonna add, one more thing about the opportunity, just a different lens. Whether you're super seasoned or you're young, everyone's an intern, and that's fun. Like
That is fun. That is super
Like
fun.
there's a level playing field here. Yeah, okay, you have the guys like us saying that, we have, this experience,
Yes.
et cetera. No, like, in the end, every time there's a new update, there's a new release, everyone's an intern. And I think
Yeah.
that's that you have to, and the older guys are gonna be tripped up by, and we're seeing that back to my earlier point, of being interns. And I think
No,
you have to add the
yeah.
fun and delight of that discovery.
I mean, sorry, I mean, we're going longer, but yesterday I heard about someone who was like, they got a, a demo of someone who did outside in company presentations, like amazingly, 30-page perfect, like consulting perfect. It was a 24-year-old bloke who looked like he just fell out of his diapers. And they were like, what the fuck is going on? But hey, I want on a positive note, and I know we've talked about this, because to me, and I said it before, and I think it's great what you do now in your work, that you work on not on how can I go and reduce the workforce by introducing an automated AI powered process, but
Yeah.
I understand, you ask yourself the question, what happens to the purpose and the soul of a company if you do all of this, right? And
Mm.
how do you keep that? And I'd love to really talk about that in another episode. But what I also love is that everything has light and shadow, and as everyone looks, and all of the things that we consume are going to be more and more created by artificial intelligence. I think we both think people are going to crave things that are more human and a real life experience.
100%.
And I love that idea, and I love the opportunity that this creates for things that are the absolute opposite of AI and robotics, that are being outside in the forest making a fire, and I don't know, and grilling a rabbit you just killed. That's a very archaic, thing, but you know what I mean. And this is just to paint a picture. And I think the opportunity and the space for this and the need for this is going to grow. And that I find very exciting
In a
personally.
world of automation, human connection will be prized and loved
Yeah.
and chased
Yeah.
after, for
Yeah.
sure, for sure.
Very nice. Talking
It's
about which, did
fun.
you meet an idiot this week or?
I did. I have, I'm gonna go for a twofer. I'm just gonna do mid one. So I subscribe to this, you get a bunch, there's this like bunch of wine lists. Do you have wine lists in Austria? Like,
I don't know. No. What do you mean?
no?
Like like what is it?
Okay. So you have these guys who, like, you have wine stores, and then you have, like, let's call it wine curators. So these guys that, like, have all these relationships with all these wineries. And if you're lucky, you're allowed to get on a list, right?
Maybe
And
we have that, but I never gave a
oh,
shit.
okay,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
oh, this
Yeah.
is this is great. Oh, and especially like Napa Valley and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
people like compete, and they on a wait list to get on the list. And sometimes those wait lists are like 5 years to get on the list. Oh yeah. And I have a dear friend who finally got, he's an idiot of the week because I feel sorry for him. He he got, after years of just schmoozy, he got on the list, right? It's called, like, I think it was like the Big Kahuna uh uh
Mhm.
list, right? And do you know what the monthly fees are for this list, to get on this
Mm,
list? Which he had no
mm.
idea. He was just heard
A
all his
thousand
friends talk.
bucks.
Exactly.
And now he can't get out of it
A
because
thousand bucks. Do you know how many bottles of wine he's getting for $1,000?
two.
4 a
Oh,
month.
that's generous.
That's generous. I was like, "Dude, you have to
To be kidding me.
reject." He's like, and then he's like, "I pulled so many favors to get on this list. I have to stay on it for, like,
Now he
a
has
long
to sell
period
them on
of
eBay to
time."
kind of make the money
Yeah,
back. Oh
yeah,
my
yeah.
God.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. He's like,
That's a great idiot of the week. That's a
yeah,
great idiot of
it's a
the week.
perfect. Yeah,
Man,
exactly.
I don't
So,
really have one. I thought about it today. I gotta pick myself for my whole dieting and keto experiences, which we're gonna have to make a podcast about it
oh,
because
I
I
wanna
have
hear
all
it.
the I just have to ask, Gemini for all the recap and all the learnings because that's also my Terminator. Because this dude or girl, I don't know, of Gemini has absolutely, perfectly led me through this journey, which has been quite an interesting physical experience, I have to say. So
Mm.
that's them in
Well,
a nutshell. Your
my
Terminator?
my Terminators are the waiters at Gallagher Steakhouse, which are
Ooh, finally
super
a
old
positive
school.
review of waiters,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, yeah, super. It's true. Super old school, classy, you know, they're disappointed you didn't order a martini to start, but they're like, "Okay, next time," like, pointing
Nice.
you
I like that.
gently at
And
what's
not
on the
too
good stuff.
pushy, but
Not too
still.
pushy, but they just
Mm,
wanna give you, like you wanna leave perfectly, and I think all of them have worked there. I think the youngest one has been, you know, uh, there 15 years, so it's like that kind of establishment. So
I love that.
yeah,
I
yeah.
love
I
that.
think
I
you have
love
those
this
more in Europe,
attitude.
but this old school kinda grizzly kinda New York thing is awesome.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
let's finish on that vibe, man.
It's a good one.
Let's finish on the
I
martini
wish you all
vibe.
a great martini
Yeah.
and a steak. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you guys. Have a great day.
Have a great one.
Ciao.
Bye.